My sister's wedding photographer just revealed why he's been following me for 3 years. I never thought I'd be writing this, but I need someone to tell me if I'm losing my mind or if this is as messed up as I think it is. 3 years ago, I was the maid of honor at my sister Rachel's wedding. Everything about that day was perfect. The venue, the flowers, her dress, except for one thing that I didn't notice until much later. The photographer, Marcus, kept appearing in the background of my life after that day. At first, I thought it was coincidence. I'd see him at the coffee shop near my office, then at the gym, the grocery store, always with a camera, always working, never acknowledging me directly. When I mentioned it to Rachel, she laughed it off. He's one of the most sought-after photographers in the city. You're probably just noticing him now because you met him at the wedding. But then things got stranger. I'd post on Instagram about trying a new restaurant, and he'd be there the next week. I'd mention a hiking trail in passing to a friend, and there he'd be with his camera on Saturday morning. Still, never speaking to me, just there. My boyfriend Tom thought I was being paranoid. My parents said I was stressed from work. Even my best friend suggested I might be unconsciously following him, not the other way around. So I started documenting everything. Screenshots of my posts, photos of him at these locations with timestamps, even a spreadsheet tracking the coincidences. 6 months ago, I confronted him at a farmer's market. He was photographing vendors, and I walked right up to him. "Why are you following me?" I demanded. He looked at me with this expression I'll never forget. Not surprise, not guilt, but something like, pity? "Sarah," he said quietly, "I'm not following you. I'm documenting you." Before I could ask what that meant, he packed up his gear and left. I tried calling the number from my sister's wedding contract, but it was disconnected. His website was gone. His social media had vanished. I hired a private investigator with my savings. Tom said I was being crazy, that I should let it go, but I couldn't. The PI found something that made my blood run cold. Marcus had been photographing me since I was 15. He had photos from my high school graduation, my college years, my first job interview, my grandmother's funeral, all events he couldn't have been hired for, all before Rachel's wedding. But here's where it gets worse. The PI found Marcus's real name, Michael Harrison. And Michael Harrison died in a car accident 7 years ago. So who had been at my sister's wedding? Who had I confronted at the farmer's market? Who has thousands of photos of my life? Yesterday, a package arrived at my apartment with no return address. Inside was a leather-bound photo album. The first picture was of me as a baby in my mother's arms at the hospital. The last one was of me sleeping in my bed 2 nights ago. But it's the note that came with it that has me terrified. Written in elegant cursive were just 8 words. "You were never supposed to find out yet." I showed everything to my parents this morning. My mother went pale when she saw the album. My father grabbed her arm and said, "We need to tell her about the arrangement." That was 3 hours ago. They asked me to give them until tonight to explain everything. Rachel is driving down from Boston. Tom won't answer my calls. And I just got a text from an unknown number with a photo of me sitting in my car right now, typing this. The message said, "Stop writing. They're almost ready to tell you." I don't know what's happening, but every instinct tells me my entire life has been some kind of experiment. And tonight I'm going to find out why my own family has been lying to me since the day I was born. I sat there frozen, my hands trembling as I stared at the text. The photo showed my silver Honda Civic from above, my silhouette visible through the windshield. My heart pounded so hard I could hear it in my ears. I looked up through my windshield, scanning the buildings around me. Nothing. No one visible in any windows. No drones overhead. No obvious vantage points. But someone was watching. Someone who knew exactly what I was doing. My phone buzzed again. Another unknown number. This time just 2 words. "Drive home." I threw my phone onto the passenger seat and started the engine. My hands shook as I gripped the steering wheel. The 15-minute drive to my apartment felt like hours. Every car behind me could be following. Every pedestrian with a phone could be photographing me. At a red light, I caught myself checking the rearview mirror obsessively. A black sedan had been behind me for 3 blocks. When I turned right, it turned right. When I switched lanes, it switched lanes. My chest tightened. I made a sudden left turn without signaling. The sedan continued straight. Just paranoia. Or maybe they wanted me to think that. By the time I pulled into my apartment building's garage, sweat had soaked through my shirt. I grabbed my phone and the evidence folder from my car, then practically ran to the elevator. The security camera in the corner seemed to track my movement. Had it always done that? Inside my apartment, I deadbolted the door and pulled the curtains closed. The photo album still sat on my kitchen counter where I'd left it after showing my parents. I flipped through it again, my stomach churning. Baby pictures. First day of school. Playing in the park at age 7. My 13th birthday party. High school graduation. College acceptance letter in my hands. First date with Tom. Rachel's wedding. Last week's lunch with coworkers. My entire life, documented by strangers. I paced my living room, checking my phone every few seconds. Tom still hadn't responded to my calls or texts. That wasn't like him. We'd been together 2 years, lived together for 6 months. Even when he thought I was being paranoid about Marcus, he'd never ignored me completely. A knock at my door made me jump. 3 quick raps. I crept to the peephole. Rachel stood in the hallway, still in her work clothes. Her usually perfect hair was disheveled, like she'd been running her fingers through it. The drive from Boston should have taken 3 hours. She'd made it in 2. I opened the door and she immediately pulled me into a hug. Her arms squeezed me so tight I could barely breathe. When she finally let go, her eyes were red-rimmed. She walked past me into the apartment without saying a word, then stopped at the kitchen counter when she saw the album. Her hand hovered over it, then pulled back like it might burn her. "How long have you known?" I asked. Rachel's shoulders sagged. She turned to face me, and for the first time in years, my confident, successful lawyer sister looked completely lost. She opened her mouth, closed it, then shook her head. "Mom and Dad will explain everything. They're on their way." "No." I stepped between her and the door. "You tell me. How long have you known someone was stalking me?" "It's not stalking," she whispered. "Then what is it? Why does some stranger have photos of me sleeping? Why has he been following me since I was 15? "Since you were born," Rachel corrected, then immediately pressed her hand over her mouth. The room spun. I grabbed the back of a chair to steady myself. "What?" Rachel sank onto my couch, her head in her hands. "I've wanted to tell you so many times, especially after the wedding, when you started noticing. But I couldn't. I promised." "Promised who?" "Everyone. Mom, Dad, Grandma Evelyn before she died. It was supposed to protect you, to protect all of us." "Protect me from what?" Another knock interrupted us. This time I recognized my parents' voices through the door. Mom called my name softly, the way she used to when I was sick as a child. I let them in. Dad carried a manila folder thick with documents. Mom clutched her purse like a lifeline. They both looked older than they had this morning, aged by whatever secret they'd been carrying. We sat in my living room, my parents on the couch with Rachel, me in the armchair across from them. The photo album lay on the coffee table between us like evidence in a trial. Dad cleared his throat. 28 years ago, your grandmother Evelyn came to us with a proposition." "David, start from the beginning," Mom interrupted. "She needs to understand why we agreed to it." Dad nodded. "Your mother and I were drowning in debt. Medical bills from Rachel's birth complications, student loans, a mortgage we couldn't afford. We were 3 months from losing the house. I'd never known they'd struggled financially. We'd grown up comfortable, never wanting for anything. Evelyn had always been eccentric," Mom continued, "but she was also brilliant and wealthy. When she offered to help, we were desperate. She said she would set up a trust fund," Dad said. $50 million. The number hit me like a physical blow. 50 million? But there were conditions. Dad opened the folder and pulled out a document. Even from across the room, I could see the legal seals and signatures. "Your life had to be documented, completely, from birth to your 30th birthday. You sold my privacy for money?" My voice came out strangled. "We thought we were securing your future," Mom said, tears streaming down her face. The documentation seemed harmless. Baby pictures, school photos, important milestones, things parents normally photograph anyway. But it wasn't just that, was it? I gestured to the album. "Someone photographed me sleeping 2 nights ago." Dad's face darkened. "That wasn't supposed to happen. The recent surveillance, the invasive photos, none of that was part of the original agreement. Then why is it happening?" My parents exchanged a look. Rachel stared at her hands. "Because you started noticing," Mom said finally. "The contract specified that you couldn't know about the arrangement until you turned 30, if you discovered it early. The money would go to charity," Dad finished. "All of it." I laughed, but it came out harsh and bitter. "So you've been lying to me my entire life for money I might not even get?" "It's not just about the money anymore," Rachel said suddenly. "Tell her the rest." Dad pulled out another document. "There's more to the contract. The photographer, whoever they hired, gets $2 million when you turn 30, but only if the documentation is complete. So this Michael Harrison, or Marcus, or whatever his name is, we don't know who he really is," Mom interrupted. "We didn't hire him. Evelyn set up a trust to manage everything. They hired the photographers, managed the documentation. We just agreed to not interfere." "And you all knew? This whole time?" "I found out when I turned 18, Rachel said quietly. "They had to tell me so I wouldn't accidentally reveal anything. It's been killing me, Sarah. Watching you live your life not knowing someone was always watching." I stood up, needing to move, to do something with the rage building inside me. "Tom knows too, doesn't he? That's why he's not answering." Dad's silence was answer enough. "How long?" 6 months, Dad admitted. "He was going to propose. We thought he should know what he was getting into." The room tilted. Tom had known for 6 months. Every time he'd dismissed my concerns about Marcus, told me I was being paranoid, he'd known I was right. "Who else knows? My friends? My coworkers? Is everyone in my life part of this?" "No," Mom said firmly. "Just immediate family and Tom. The photographers were supposed to be invisible, professional. What's been happening recently? The obvious surveillance? Something changed. What changed is that Sarah's birthday is in 6 months," Rachel said. "Someone's getting desperate to complete the documentation." I walked to the window. peering through a gap in the curtains. The street below looked normal. Cars passing, people walking dogs, life continuing as if my world hadn't just shattered. The text said you were ready to tell me. Tell me what? That my entire life has been a lie? That everyone I trust has been deceiving me? There's one more thing, Dad said quietly. I turned back to them, not sure I could handle one more revelation. Evelyn left a letter, to be opened only if you discovered the truth before your 30th birthday. He held out a cream-colored envelope with my name written in my grandmother's distinctive handwriting. I took it with numb fingers. The paper was heavy, expensive. The wax seal bore her initials. We haven't read it, Mom said. It's addressed to you. I stared at the envelope. My grandmother had died when I was 22. She'd known this moment might come, had planned for it. I need you all to leave, I said without looking up. Sarah, Rachel started. Please, I need to think. Alone. They filed out quietly. Mom hugged me at the door, whispering apologies. Dad squeezed my shoulder. Rachel promised to stay in town, to be available when I was ready to talk. When the door closed behind them, I stood in my empty apartment holding a letter from a dead woman who'd turned my life into some kind of twisted experiment. My phone buzzed. Tom's name appeared on the screen. I'm outside, his text read. I know you know. Can we talk? I didn't respond. Instead, I sat on my couch with the letter in my lap, the photo album beside me, and tried to make sense of a life that had never really been mine. I broke the wax seal with trembling fingers. The letter inside was written on thick cream paper in my grandmother's precise handwriting. As I unfolded it, a smaller envelope fell onto my lap, sealed with red wax and marked, "For the photographer." My grandmother's words stared back at me. My dearest Sarah, if you are reading this, then you have discovered our family's arrangement before your 30th birthday. I imagine you feel betrayed, violated, and confused. These feelings are justified, but incomplete. When you were born, I saw something in you that I never saw in Rachel, a fierce independence that would either be your greatest strength or your destruction. I needed to know which path you would choose. The documentation was never about creating a record. It was about ensuring you lived authentically despite knowing, somewhere deep inside, that you were being watched. Every human being performs for an audience, whether they admit it or not. I wanted to see who Sarah Chen would become when the audience was invisible, but ever present. The money is real, but it was never the true inheritance. The real gift is in the album before you, proof that you lived a genuine life despite the surveillance. You never performed, you never changed. You remained stubbornly, beautifully, yourself. The photographer was instructed to maintain distance unless you were in danger. The recent invasiveness suggests someone has broken our agreement. The enclosed letter may help you understand why. You now face a choice that will define your next chapter. The money can be yours on your 30th birthday, but only if you agree to complete the documentation. Or you can walk away, forgiving nothing and no one, and live knowing you were strong enough to choose freedom over fortune. There is a third option, one I hope you'll consider. But that revelation requires you to meet someone first. With love and regret. Evelyn Whitmore. I read the letter 3 times, each reading making me angrier. Even in death, my grandmother was trying to control my life, dress up her twisted experiment as some kind of philosophical exercise. The second envelope sat in my lap like a coiled snake. I considered throwing it away, but curiosity won. Inside was a single paragraph. Your payment structure has been modified. Complete documentation by any means necessary. She knows now. Finish the archive or forfeit everything. The trust. My hands shook as I set both letters aside. Someone had changed the rules, turned my grandmother's already invasive experiment into something darker. The photographer, whoever he really was, had been pushed to desperate measures. A knock at my door interrupted my spiraling thoughts. 3 soft taps, then 2 more. Not Tom's pattern, not my family's either. Through the peephole, I saw him. Marcus, or Michael, or whoever he really was. He stood in the hallway holding a laptop bag, his camera nowhere in sight. His face looked haggard, exhausted. I yanked open the door. He stepped back, hands raised peacefully. Before he could speak, I grabbed his shirt and pulled him inside, slamming the door behind him. He didn't resist, didn't fight back, just stood there looking at me with those same pitying eyes from the farmer's market. I shoved the red-sealed letter at his chest. He glanced at it, and his shoulders sagged. He moved to my kitchen table and opened his laptop. I watched, fists clenched, as he pulled up file after file. Thousands of photos appeared on the screen. Me at 5, missing my front teeth. Me at 12, crying after a failed piano recital. Me at 16, kissing Jason Martinez behind the gym. Me at 21, hammered and laughing at my college graduation party. Me at 25, alone in my apartment, dancing to music no one else could hear. My entire life, captured in moments I thought were private. He opened another folder. These photos were different. Timestamps from the last 6 months. Me sleeping, me showering behind frosted glass, me changing clothes, me crying after fights with Tom. Invasive, violating images that made my skin crawl. He deleted the entire folder while I watched, emptied the trash, ran a program to overwrite the data. Then he pulled out a hard drive and handed it to me. I plugged it into my own laptop. More photos, but these were artistic, respectful. Moments caught from a distance. Me helping an elderly woman with her groceries, me laughing with coworkers, me sitting in parks reading. Still invasive, but somehow caring. He typed on his phone and showed me the screen. I'm not who you think I am. I waited. He typed more. My name is Nathan Chen. I'm your cousin. The room tilted. I grabbed the table for support. He continued typing. Evelyn was my grandmother too. My father was David's brother who died when I was 10. Evelyn raised me after that. My mind raced. Dad had mentioned his brother occasionally, but always said they'd lost touch before he died. Another lie. Nathan typed, she hired me when I turned 18. Said it was a way to honor the family, to protect you. I was young, needed the money for art school. I didn't understand what I was agreeing to. Then why continue? I managed to ask. He typed, by the time I realized how wrong it was, I'd been watching over you for years. You became important to me, not as a subject, as family I could never acknowledge. I thought about all the times I'd seen him, always alone, always working. How many birthdays had he watched me celebrate while spending his own behind a camera? The recent photos, the invasive ones. He typed faster. 6 months ago, the trust administrators contacted me. Said you were getting suspicious, that I needed to complete the archive by any means necessary. They tripled my payment. When I refused, they threatened to sue me for breach of contract, take everything I had. So you violated my privacy instead? His fingers hesitated over the phone. Then, I took the photos they wanted. But I also started leaving you clues. The farmer's market encounter. Making myself more visible. I wanted you to catch me. To end this. I stared at him. Really looked at him for the first time. Mid-30s, tired eyes, hands that shook slightly. He looked like my father around the edges. The same sharp jawline, the same way of hunching his shoulders when uncomfortable. The trust. Who are they? He shrugged, typed, lawyers, administrators. Evelyn set it up to run independently. Even your parents don't know who manages it now. My phone buzzed. Tom again. Still outside. Still waiting. I made a decision. Walking to the door, I opened it. Tom stood in the hallway, flowers in his hand. Carnations. My least favorite. He'd never paid attention to details like that. I let him in. He saw Nathan and froze. You're him, the photographer. Nathan nodded. Tom turned to me, his prepared speech clearly forgotten. The flowers dropped to his side. He started talking fast, explaining how my father had approached him 6 months ago, how he'd been sworn to secrecy, how he'd wanted to tell me but couldn't risk the inheritance. I watched his mouth move, but the words felt distant. 6 months of lies. 6 months of gaslighting me when I knew something was wrong. 6 months of choosing money over truth. When he finished, he reached for my hand. I stepped back. You need to leave. Sarah, please. I love you. I was trying to protect you. You were protecting $50 million. His face flushed. That's not fair. That money could set us up for life. Our kids would never struggle. We could do anything. Go anywhere. We? He had the grace to look ashamed. When we get married. Get out. Sarah. Get out. He left the carnations on my counter. I threw them in the trash as soon as the door closed. Nathan was packing up his laptop. I put my hand on his arm, stopping him. Show me everything. Every photo, every document, everything you have. He hesitated, then nodded. For the next 3 hours, we went through 28 years of surveillance. He had organized everything meticulously, by year, by event, by emotion. Folders labeled joy, sorrow, growth, love, loss. There were photos I expected, birthdays, graduations, holidays, but there were also moments I'd forgotten. Me at 7, building sandcastles alone because Rachel was too cool to play with her little sister. Me at 14, sitting with Marcus Yamamoto after his father died, not saying anything, just being there. Me at 19, teaching elderly residents at a nursing home how to use computers. You caught all of this? Nathan typed, you live beautifully when you think no one's watching. I found myself crying, not from violation or anger, but from seeing my life laid out like this. The small kindnesses, the private victories, the moments of grace I'd forgotten. Why didn't you ever approach me? As family? He pulled up a document on his phone. Another contract. This one specified that he could never reveal his identity to me, never make contact beyond what was necessary for documentation. The penalty for breaking the agreement. Immediate termination and forfeiture of all payments past and future. So you gave up your own life to document mine. He typed, I thought I was protecting you. Evelyn convinced me there were reasons, that someday it would all make sense. My phone rang. Mom. I answered on speaker. Her voice was frantic. Sarah, where are you? Are you safe? I'm fine. Why? We just got a call from the trust administrators. They say you've been in contact with the photographer, that you're interfering with the documentation. They're threatening to nullify the entire inheritance. Good. Silence. Then Dad's voice. Sarah, think about what you're saying. $50 million. I don't care about the money. You should, Dad said. Do you know what we sacrificed? What we gave up to ensure your future? You gave up my privacy, my autonomy, my trust. We gave up our own inheritance, Mom said quietly. Evelyn cut us off when Rachel was born, said we were too conventional, too focused on appearances. The only way we could provide for you both was to agree to her terms for your trust. This was new. She disinherited you? We were living on credit cards and dreams, Dad said. The arrangement saved us. Saved you from growing up in poverty. So you traded my privacy for financial security. We traded our relationship with you for your future, Mom corrected. Do you think it's been easy? Knowing someone was watching you, documenting moments we should have been part of, keeping this secret while watching you grow more paranoid, more isolated? Rachel's voice joined the call. Tell her about the other families. What other families? Dad sighed. Evelyn didn't just do this to you. She had similar arrangements with 3 other branches of the family. Different terms, different experiments, all designed to test her theories about nature versus nurture, authenticity versus performance. My stomach churned. There are others like me? Were, Mom corrected. You're the only one who made it this far. The others discovered the truth early, broke the contracts. Their trusts were dissolved. Good for them. 2 of them are dead, Rachel said quietly. Sewers lied. The 3rd is in psychiatric care. The violation, the betrayal. They couldn't handle it. I looked at Nathan. He was pale, staring at his laptop screen. That's why we fought so hard to keep it from you. Mom continued. We saw what happened to the others. At least this way, you had a normal life. A happy life. A lie of a life. A protected life, Dad insisted. Nathan kept you safe. Documented but never interfered. Until recently. The trust changed the rules, I said. They pushed him to be invasive. Silence on the other end. Then Mom, how do you know his name? I looked at Nathan. He shook his head slightly. It doesn't matter. What matters is that this ends now. If you break the contract, you lose everything, Dad warned. I've already lost everything. My privacy, my trust in my family, my relationship. What's money compared to that? Sarah, Rachel's voice was gentle. There's something else. Something Mom and Dad don't know. I heard my parents protesting, but Rachel continued. I hired a lawyer. Quietly. To look into the trust. Evelyn's original documents specified that the surveillance should be non-invasive and respectful. What's been happening the last 6 months violates her original intent. So you might have grounds to challenge the trust. To take control of it yourself. All of it. Not just your $50 million, but the entire fund. Over $200 million. Rachel! Dad's voice was sharp. She deserves to know all her options, Rachel shot back. She's not a child anymore. She's not Evelyn's experiment. She's my sister, and she deserves the truth. I sank into my chair. $200 million. Enough to do real good in the world. Enough to make sure no other family went through this. Nathan typed something and showed me. There's more. About the trust administrators. I need to go, I told my family. I'll call you later. I hung up despite their protests. Nathan pulled up financial documents, legal filings, a complex web of connections. The trust administrators weren't just lawyers. They were connected to a larger organization, one that specialized in human behavioral studies. My grandmother's experiment hadn't been entirely her idea. They used her, I said, understanding dawning. Used her money and her family to run their experiments. Nathan nodded, typing. I found this 6 months ago. When they pushed for invasive documentation, I started investigating. They've done this to dozens of families. Wealthy eccentrics with theories about human nature, convinced to fund elaborate surveillance programs. We need to stop them. He typed, how? They have legal contracts, ironclad agreements, and they have the photos, all of them. Even the ones I deleted. Everything backs up to their servers. I thought about the other families, the suicides, the psychiatric casualties. How many lives had been destroyed for data? My phone buzzed. Another unknown number. This time, a video file. It showed Tom in what looked like a hotel room, talking to someone off camera. The timestamp was from 5 months ago. She's getting suspicious, Tom was saying. The photographer's been sloppy. She's documenting everything. A woman's voice responded, that's fine. We need her to discover the truth organically. Push her toward paranoia. The more unstable she appears, the easier it will be to control the narrative when she breaks. I don't want to hurt her. You're not hurting her. You're helping complete a decades-long study on authentic human behavior under surveillance. Her grandmother understood the value of this research. And if she doesn't break, everyone breaks. The only variable is how long it takes. The video ended. I stared at my phone, then at Nathan. He looked as shocked as I felt. Tom hadn't just known about the surveillance. He'd been actively participating, pushing me toward a breakdown. Nathan typed frantically, this changes everything. This is conspiracy. Fraud. Intentional infliction of emotional distress. I thought about calling the police, but what would I say? That my dead grandmother had paid people to photograph me my entire life? That my boyfriend had been gaslighting me as part of a behavioral experiment? It sounded insane. Another text arrived. This time, an address. 1 hour. Come alone. Bring the photographer. Time to discuss your options. Trust administration. Nathan showed me his phone. He'd received the same message. I made my decision. We're going. He shook his head, typed, "Too dangerous." They have everything. Every photo, every document. If we don't go, they'll use it. Release it. Destroy not just me, but my entire family. Nathan's hands hesitated over his phone. Then, "I'll protect you. Like I always have." "No," I said firmly. "We protect each other. We're family, after all." For the first time since I'd known him, Nathan smiled. It transformed his face, and I could see my father in him, could see the boy who'd lost his parents, and found himself bound to photograph a cousin he could never acknowledge. I gathered the letters, the hard drive, my phone, evidence, weapons, whatever they might become. As we prepared to leave, I thought about the choice my grandmother had laid out. Accept the money and complete the documentation. Walk away and forfeit everything. Or the mysterious third option. Maybe the third option was this: confronting the people who'd turned my life into an experiment. Taking control of my own narrative. Nathan drove. I'd never seen his car before. A nondescript sedan that had probably followed me hundreds of times without my noticing. The address led us to a glass office building downtown, one of those anonymous corporate towers that could house anything. The lobby was empty except for a security guard who checked our names against a list and directed us to the 20th floor. In the elevator, Nathan typed, "Whatever happens, I'm sorry. For all of it." "After this is over," I said, "we're going to be proper cousins. Sunday dinners, holiday gatherings, no cameras." He nodded, his eyes bright with unshed tears. The elevator opened to a pristine reception area. A woman in her 50s sat behind a modern desk. She smiled when she saw us. "Miss A. Chen, Mr. Chen, they're expecting you." She led us down a hallway lined with photographs. Not mine. Dozens of other subjects. Children growing into adults, all captured in moments they thought were private. The wall of evidence stretched the entire length of the corridor. "How many?" I asked. 47 active studies," the woman replied. "Your grandmother was one of our most dedicated partners." She opened a door to a conference room. 3 people sat at a polished table, 2 men in expensive suits, and a woman who looked like she could buy and sell small countries before breakfast. "Sarah," the woman said, "please, sit. We have much to discuss." I remained standing. Nathan stood beside me, his presence oddly comforting. "I prefer to stand while people explain why they've violated my privacy for 28 years. The woman smiled. Direct. Just like your psychological profile predicted. She gestured to a thick folder on the table. 28 years of behavioral documentation. You're one of our most complete studies. I'm not a study. I'm a person. You're both, one of the men said. That's what makes the research so valuable. Authentic human behavior, documented without interference, without consent. Your parents consented. To my grandmother's arrangement, not to your expanded program. The woman leaned back. Your grandmother was a visionary. She understood that human behavior could only be truly studied when the subjects didn't know they were being observed. The Hawthorne effect, you see. People change when they know they're being watched. But I did know, I said. Some part of me always knew something was wrong. Which makes your data even more valuable, the second man said. You lived authentically despite subconscious awareness of observation. Do you understand how rare that is? Nathan stepped forward, his phone out. He'd typed a message. What do you want? We want to complete the study, the woman said. 2 more years of documentation. When you turn 30, you receive your full inheritance plus a bonus. 50 million becomes 75. No. Then we release everything, the first man said. Every photo, every document. Your entire life becomes public record. Social media, news outlets, academic journals. You'll be famous, but not in the way anyone wants. That's blackmail. That's leverage, the woman corrected. Your grandmother understood the game. She played it well. My grandmother was manipulated by you. The woman laughed. Your grandmother founded this organization. She recruited us, not the other way around. The room spun. I gripped the back of a chair. That's impossible. The woman slid a photograph across the table. It showed my grandmother, younger, standing with a group of academics in front of a university building. The sign read, Whitmore Institute for Behavioral Studies. She started with good intentions, the woman explained, studying child development, nature versus nurture. But she realized laboratory settings produced artificial results. So she created natural laboratories, families, her own to start. I thought I might be sick. Her own children were experiments? Everything was an experiment to Evelyn. How does wealth affect character? How does surveillance influence behavior? Can authentic life exist under observation? You were her masterpiece, the culmination of decades of research. I won't complete it. Then you'll destroy it all? Your family's financial security? Your cousin's career? Your own future? I looked at Nathan. He was pale but steady, ready to follow my lead. I want to see everything. Every study, every subject, every piece of data you've collected. The three exchanged glances. That's not possible, the second man said. Then we're done here. I turned to leave. The woman's voice stopped me. Wait. She pulled out a tablet, typed rapidly. I can show you yours. The complete file. Everything we've collected, analyzed, concluded. I hesitated. Did I want to see myself reduced to data points and behavioral patterns? Nathan touched my arm gently, a reminder that I wasn't alone. Show me. For the next hour, they walked me through 28 years of analysis, personality assessments based on my choices, predictive models of my behavior, charts showing emotional patterns, relationship dynamics, decision-making trees. They'd predicted with 87% accuracy that I'd hire a private investigator. They'd known with 93% certainty that I'd confront Nathan at the farmer's market. They'd been 78% sure I'd end up in this room. You're not as unpredictable as you think, the woman said. No one is. That's the beauty of long-term observation. Patterns emerge. Behavior becomes predictable. Then predict this, I said. I pulled out my phone and started recording video. The three administrators scrambled, the men reaching for my phone, but Nathan stepped between us. I spoke quickly, clearly. My name is Sarah Chen. For 28 years, I've been the subject of unauthorized surveillance by the Whitmore Institute for Behavioral Studies. This organization, founded by my grandmother, Evelyn Whitmore, has been conducting illegal human experiments on dozens of families without their knowledge or consent. Stop! The woman stood, her composure cracking. You don't understand the ramifications. I understand perfectly. I kept recording. You've violated federal privacy laws, conducted human research without IRB approval, and inflicted intentional emotional distress on your subjects. 2 people are dead because of your experiments. The men were on their phones, probably calling lawyers. The woman stared at me with something like respect. You're destroying decades of valuable research. I'm ending decades of abuse. I stopped recording, uploaded the video to cloud storage, and sent copies to Rachel, to 3 journalist friends, and to a privacy advocacy group I'd donated to for years. You have 1 hour to decide, I told them. Transfer full control of all trust funds to the victims. Not just mine, all of them. Destroy all documentation, all photos, all data. Dissolve the institute, or this video goes viral, and you can explain your research to federal investigators. You're bluffing, the first man said. Releasing that video destroys your own privacy, makes you a public figure. Everything you're trying to protect dies. He was right. Going public meant sacrificing the anonymity I'd fought to preserve. It meant becoming the poster child for surveillance victims. My life dissected by strangers. But I thought about the wall of photographs in the hallway. All those other subjects, living their lives under secret observation. The 2 who'd killed themselves. The one in psychiatric care. Some things are worth more than privacy, I said. Nathan typed on his phone, showed it to me. I have backups of everything. Photos, documents, contracts, evidence. The administrators saw his message too. Their faces went pale. 1 hour, I repeated. Nathan and I left them scrambling in their conference room. In the elevator, he typed, "They'll never agree. Too much money involved. Too many powerful people. Then we burn it all down." He studied my face, then nodded. In the lobby, my phone exploded with calls. Rachel, my parents, Tom. 3 unknown numbers that were probably the administrators. I ignored them all. Nathan drove us to a small cafe downtown, one I'd never been to before. No surveillance history, no documented patterns, just 2 cousins having coffee for the first time. He typed, "What now?" Now we wait. And then, whatever happens, we start over. No more secrets, no more surveillance, just family. He smiled again, and I realized I was seeing the real Nathan for the first time. Not the photographer who'd shadowed my life, but the cousin who'd sacrificed his own freedom to protect mine. My phone buzzed. "Rachel," I answered. Her voice was breathless. "Sarah, what did you do?" "I just got a call from the trust lawyers. They're offering to settle. Full control of your trust, no conditions. But they want the video deleted and a non-disclosure agreement." "What about the others? The other families?" "I don't know. They only mentioned your trust." "Then no deal." "Sarah, all or nothing, Rachel. Every family they've hurt. Every subject they've violated. Complete dissolution of the institute. That's hundreds of millions of dollars. They'll never agree. Then I checked my watch. 43 minutes, the world will know what they've been doing. I hung up and turned off my phone. Nathan and I drank our coffee in silence. For the first time in my life, I knew no one was watching. No cameras, no documentation. Just 2 people sharing a quiet moment. It was the most free I'd ever felt. The timer on my phone showed 38 minutes remaining when Nathan pointed at his laptop screen. He'd been monitoring news sites and social media while we waited. Nothing yet. The administrators were probably still debating, calculating risks, making frantic calls to board members. I watched steam rise from my coffee cup, trying to process everything. My entire life documented, my family complicit, my boyfriend actively pushing me toward breakdown, and my grandmother, the architect of it all. Nathan slid a napkin across the table with a simple message. They'll call. He was right. 5 minutes later, my phone lit up with an unknown number. I let it ring 3 times before answering on speaker. The woman from the conference room spoke quickly, her earlier composure replaced by urgency. She outlined their counteroffer. My trust released immediately with no conditions. Nathan's contracts voided. All invasive photos from the last 6 months destroyed. But the institute would continue. The other families would remain bound by their agreements. The research would go on. I ended the call without responding. Nathan raised an eyebrow. I shook my head. Not good enough. My phone rang again immediately. This time it was Rachel, her lawyer voice in full effect. The administrators had contacted her directly, trying to negotiate through my family. They'd offered to double my inheritance if I'd sign a comprehensive non-disclosure agreement. I told Rachel to decline and hung up. 25 minutes left. Nathan pulled up the video I'd recorded on his laptop. We watched it together. My face flushed with anger, my voice steady despite the trembling in my hands, the administrators' panicked reactions, their admissions caught clearly on camera. He typed on his phone, "Sure about this?" I thought about the wall of photographs in that hallway. Dozens of lives under surveillance. Some who'd discovered the truth and couldn't live with it. Others still oblivious, their every moment documented by strangers. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. A single line. Final offer incoming. The call came 30 seconds later. This time it was one of the men from the meeting, his voice strained. Complete dissolution of the institute within 6 months. All documentation destroyed under legal supervision. Trust funds transferred to subjects or their families. But they needed 2 years to wind down operations, to handle the legal complexities. And absolute confidentiality from me and Nathan. I considered it. 2 years was too long. Too many photos could be taken. Too much damage done. I gave them my terms. Complete shutdown within 30 days. All surveillance ceases immediately. Every photo, video, and document transferred to the subjects within 1 week. Full control of trust funds transferred within 48 hours. Nathan and I would sign confidentiality agreements, but only after verifying compliance. Silence on the other end, then hushed voices conferring. The man came back on the line. They agreed, but with conditions. Legal oversight of the dissolution. Gradual transfer of materials to prevent data breaches. And I had to delete the video immediately, before lawyers arrived with papers. I looked at Nathan. He nodded slowly. I agreed but added my own condition. Nathan would maintain copies of everything until the dissolution was complete. Insurance against non-compliance. More hushed conferencing. Then, reluctantly, agreement. 15 minutes left on my deadline. Within an hour, we were back in the glass tower, now filled with lawyers. Papers were drafted, reviewed, modified. Nathan and I signed document after document. The administrators looked hollow, defeated. The woman who'd seemed so powerful earlier now appeared diminished, her empire crumbling. By evening, the immediate transfers began. Control of my trust fund shifted to me. Not just the 50 million, but an additional 20 million in accumulated interest. Nathan received full payment for his years of work, plus a substantial settlement for the emotional distress of the assignment. The real work started the next morning. Nathan and I met with the legal team overseeing the dissolution. We spent hours reviewing lists of subjects, ensuring everyone would be notified properly. Some had never suspected. Others, like me, had spent years feeling watched. All would receive their documentation and compensation. The hardest part was deciding how to handle those who died. Their families would receive the materials and settlements. But how do you apologize for driving someone to sewerslide? How do you compensate for a life lost to paranoia? Nathan worked tirelessly, using his insider knowledge to ensure nothing was hidden. No backup servers missed. He knew their systems, their protocols. Without him, they might have succeeded in preserving some portion of their research. My family relationships required different work. I met with my parents at their house, the same living room where they'd revealed the truth. This time, I did most of the talking. I explained my hurt, my sense of betrayal, but also my understanding of their impossible position. They'd been young, desperate, manipulated by someone they trusted. Mom cried through most of it. Dad sat rigid, occasionally wiping his eyes. They'd spent 28 years carrying this secret, watching it poison our relationship. The relief of confession mixed with shame over their choices. I didn't forgive them that day, or the next. But I agreed to try, to work toward rebuilding trust. Family therapy started the following week, a neutral space to process decades of deception. Rachel and I met separately. Her burden had been different, forced to lie to protect me, watching my paranoia grow while knowing I was right. She showed me journals she'd kept, documenting her struggle with the secret, pages of guilt, self-doubt, anger at our parents for putting her in that position. Our relationship healed faster. She'd been a victim too, in her way. We started having regular lunches, rebuilding the sisterhood that secrecy had damaged. Tom was different. I met him once at a coffee shop to officially end things. He arrived with explanations, justifications, pleas for understanding. I let him talk, then showed him the video of his meeting with the administrators. His face went white as he heard himself discussing pushing me toward breakdown. I left him there with his cold coffee and his excuses. The institute's dissolution proceeded on schedule. Every day brought new revelations. Families discovering surveillance, subjects receiving decades of photos they never knew existed. Some were angry. Others surprisingly found value in the documentation. One woman told me she was grateful to have photos of her late mother she'd never seen before. Nathan and I supervised the destruction of data that subjects didn't want preserved. Servers wiped, hard drives destroyed, cloud storage permanently deleted. We watched it all, ensuring nothing survived that could restart the experiments. 3 weeks into the dissolution, Nathan showed me something unexpected. Hidden in the Institute's files, he'd found correspondence between my grandmother and other researchers. She hadn't founded the organization alone. She'd been recruited by academics who saw her wealth and family as perfect test subjects. The manipulation went deeper than we'd known. It didn't excuse her choices, but it added complexity to my anger. She'd been both perpetrator and victim, using her family to fulfill her own need for control, while being used by those who saw profit in her eccentricity. The art exhibition idea evolved naturally. Nathan had spent years developing genuine skill as a photographer. Some of his images of me were beautiful, candid moments that captured joy, sorrow, growth. With my permission, he selected a small collection that showed life's quiet moments without violating privacy. The exhibition opened at a small gallery downtown. No publicity, no media attention. We'd had enough of being watched. Just friends, family, and a few collectors who appreciated Nathan's artistic eye. The proceeds went to a privacy advocacy group, as planned. Several pieces sold, including one of me at 19, teaching at the nursing home. The buyer was one of the elderly residents I'd taught, now in her 90s. She remembered me, wanted the photo as a reminder of kindness during a difficult time in her life. My 30th birthday approached with less fanfare than my grandmother had probably imagined. No final photo to burn. The surveillance had ended weeks before. Instead, I had a small gathering with people who knew my whole story and chose to celebrate with me anyway. Nathan brought his camera but left it in its bag. We were learning to be family without documentation, to create memories without evidence. He'd started therapy too, processing years of isolation and moral conflict. The cousin I'd never known was becoming a friend I valued. The money brought its own challenges. Sudden wealth, even expected wealth, changes things. I hired financial advisors, set up charitable funds, made plans that felt overwhelming. But I also did simple things. Paid off my parents' mortgage, funded Rachel's dream of starting her own practice, donated to the nursing home where I'd volunteered. Some subjects from other families reached out, forming an informal support group. We met monthly, sharing experiences of life under surveillance. The woman in psychiatric care joined us eventually, slowly rebuilding after years of paranoia that turned out to be justified. Not everyone recovered. The 2 who died left behind families still grappling with loss. I met with some of them, offering what comfort I could. One mother told me her daughter had left a note. I can't live knowing every moment was watched. The weight of those words stayed with me. The institute officially closed on day 29 of our agreement. The building that had housed their offices was already being renovated for new tenants. The administrators scattered to other positions, other cities. The woman who'd led them sent me a single email. Your grandmother would be proud. I deleted it without responding. On day 30, Nathan and I met at the same cafe where we'd waited out my ultimatum. This time, we knew no one was watching. No hidden cameras, no documentation. Just 2 cousins having coffee, planning Sunday dinner with the family. My phone sat silent on the table. No unknown numbers, no mysterious texts. For the first time in my life, I was truly alone with my thoughts, unobserved and undocumented. The freedom felt strange, almost uncomfortable. I'd spent so long being watched that privacy felt like nudity, but I was learning to live without an audience, to make choices without wondering who was recording them. Nathan slid a final napkin across the table. Now what? I smiled, thinking of all the life ahead that no one would photograph, all the moments that would exist only in memory, the ordinary beauty of an undocumented life. I picked up my coffee, took a sip, and began planning a future that belonged only to me.